In baseball, mistakes happen. Sometimes a player strikes out when his team needed a hit. Sometimes a pitcher allows a run to score in a tied game, costing his team the win. When a player messes up and costs his team the game, he needs to brush off the blunder and move on. The player who messed up may feel disgruntled, as well as his teammates or other team officials, but dwelling on what happened won't help anyone. Everyone involved needs to suck it up, accept that the unfortunate outcome occurred, and look forward to the next game. However, what happens when a player messes up so bad, the owner of the team forces himself into the situation to intervene? In a classless move, this happened before. Not only did it happened in the World Series. The player in question is this man, Mike Andrews. Andrews had an 8-year career in MLB, playing from 1966 to 1973. A second baseman, Andrews has a career slash line of .258 with a .353 on base and a .369 slugging for a .722 OPS across 3,500 career plate appearances. His stats equal an adjusted OPS of 104, and he achieved 10.9 WAR in his career. A decent player overall, Andrews put together 2 terrific seasons in the late 60s. From 1968 to 1969, he hit .281 with a .378 on base and a .401 slugging for a .779 OPS, 122 adjusted OPS, and 7.5 WAR. Outside of those 2 seasons and one with the White Sox in 1971, Andrews was underwhelming and struggled offensively near the end of his career. It was at the very end of his career where he was involved in an interesting event with the owner of the ball club he was on. While on the White Sox in 1973, Andrews was struggling, hitting .201 with a .302 on base and .258 slugging in 52 games before getting released in July. Making a run for the postseason, the Oakland Athletics signed Andrews to be a bench piece of the team. He was recruited by the Oakland manager Dick Williams, who was the manager of the Red Sox when Andrews put together the 2 finest seasons of his career. Andrews was bad in his very limited playing time for the A's in 1973, but he was added to the postseason roster as a backup to everyday second baseman Dick Green. The Athletics beat the Baltimore Orioles in the American League Championship Series and advanced to the World Series where they faced the New York Mets. Oakland won Game 1 and Game 2 went into extra innings. Mike Andrews was brought into the game in the 8th inning as a pinch hitter who later stayed in the game at second base. With the game tied at 6 in the top of the 12th inning, the Mets rallied and scored to take a 7-6 lead. With 2 outs, the score remained 7-6 and the bases were loaded for John Milner. Milner hit a ground ball to Andrews, who let the ball roll through his legs, allowing 2 runs to score. The next batter, Jerry Grote, also hit a ground ball to Andrews. Mike fielded the ball cleanly, but a wild throw to first allowed another run to score. 2 errors committed by Andrews in back-to-back at-bats allowed 3 unearned runs to score, giving the Mets a 10-6 lead. New York ended up winning 10-7. Athletics owner Charlie Finley was livid over this. Normally, any owner ought to be upset over the turn of events. While Andrews' 2 errors were not the only reason Oakland lost the game, they certainly were a part, albeit a small part. He was not the only reason why Oakland lost the game. It would be one thing to say Finley was disgruntled over the errors and made his feelings known. Finley did that and much, much more. What Finley did in response to Andrews' errors is the most blatant act of disrespect I've ever seen an owner do on one of his players. Following Game 2, Charlie Finley forced Mike Andrews to falsely sign a medical document claiming Andrews had a shoulder injury and would be unable to participate in the rest of the World Series. No, I'm not making that up. After Game 2 finished, Finley contacted team physician Dr. Harry Walker, telling him to fake an injury to Andrews so he can legally replace him on the roster. You see, according to MLB rules, a player can only be replaced mid-series if he is injured. When the game ended, Andrews was called into the trainer's room where Dr. Walker gave him a fake exam. After that fake exam, he was asked to sign a document stating the following: Mike Andrews has a history of chronic shoulder disability. He is unable to play his position because of a bicep groove tenosynovitis of the right shoulder. It is my opinion he's disabled for the rest of the year. Andrews was not injured in any way. The owners simply wanted him off the team. Facing pressure from Finley and Dr. Walker, Andrews signed the document allowing the A's to replace him. Charlie Finley may be the most conceited, unsupportive owner in Oakland Athletics history, which is really saying something. Oakland manager Dick Williams caught on to Finley's dishonesty and naturally told the rest of the team about what happened. He was so disgusted with what occurred that Williams publicly stated he would resign from his position effective following the World Series. The rest of the Athletics team was of course just as upset with Finley as Williams was. The players taped a number 17, the number Andrews wore, on their sleeves as a form of protest against Finley. There were even talks about the team striking Game 3. Luckily, the players wouldn't have to strike. Word of Finley's dishonest act reached MLB Commissioner Bowie Kuhn. When Finley submitted a request to replace Andrews on the roster, Kuhn rejected that request and ordered Finley to admit Andrews back to the roster. With the support of the players, commissioners, and fans alike, Andrews was admitted back to the team. He made his return in Game 4, appearing as a pinch hitter in the top of the 8th inning. He grounded out to third base in this at-bat and never made another appearance in the major leagues ever again. Following the World Series, Charlie Finley was issued fines of $11,000 for his antics. The same day Finley received those fines, Mike Andrews was released, never to play in MLB ever again. Charlie Finley's act of unethically and illegally cutting his player following a poor performance may be the most selfish, egotistical act by an owner in athletics history. Lucky for Andrews, he had the support of everybody else, even if he didn't have it of Finley. As for Dick Williams, who publicly stated he would resign following the World Series, was good to his word. He is the only manager in MLB history to resign following 2 consecutive World Series wins. Good for you, Dick.